So first, thank you, especially to Censhare and Dieter for inviting me today. It is both a pleasure and an honor to be here. It's very exciting times for GoPro. As many of you may know, we had our detailed S1 published on Monday, which means that we are pretty much imminent for an IPO here pretty shortly. So these are very exciting times. Today I am going to talk about what I believe is going to be a new age for information technology, the way that we mine data to create new services, the way we connect data to create insights and analytics that allow us to make better business decisions without the historical experimentation where we tend to do a ready, shoot, measure how effective that was with some kind of a survey or maybe revenue generation. Then we analyze that, we come back and we go, okay, maybe we should have done it more over here, right? So if you can get analytics in the very beginning, it can make companies more effective for less money, faster, with better customer satisfaction. So it seems fitting that since this is GoPro that we should start with the video, and I'm hoping that that's going to happen when I hit this down arrow key. Well, I wish I could take credit for that, but there was a whole bunch of guys and women back at GoPro that put that together and is a great example of how GoPro is really evolving from a camera company and more into a media company. What a lot of people may not realize is that our founder, Nick Woodman, founded the company more than 10 years ago and spent many years on the road trying out different camera ideas. His original idea was really just to have a wrist strap on and use a third-party camera, a non-GoPro camera, believe it or not. And so he went around the world, actually, having his friends and other people that he would meet actually, you know, prototyping. And this is actually a VW van, as you might recognize, and he still has that van. That is his pride and joy. He toured probably for about 7 years, evolving his idea into the camera that we now know as a GoPro. So in the origins of GoPro and the founder himself, he himself was an athlete. Predominantly his original ideas around the development of the camera was around surfing. And it evolved from there into more of an athlete of various sorts. So there was an expansion in terms of how he could see that this camera could be used. And then he actually made enough money to buy his own race car. And it was in that moment where they wanted to have him rent a camera for like $100 an hour. And he said, no, I got a GoPro, I'll just strap it to the top. And then all of a sudden, these people came over and they said, where do you get one of those? And that was really in his mind when the company was really born. That, oh my God, chill moment where he got it. The rest is really history. So there was all of these different athletic, competitive. In Europe, we try and cover as many of the athletic events as possible. We are all over the place, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen either firsthand or through footage. But we've come to an interesting evolution in our observation of what really motivates people to want to get a GoPro. And that is really around user-generated content. So user-generated content actually, more than, believe it or not, more than these spectacular athletic moments, user-generated content goes viral. And when user-generated content goes viral, so do camera sales. So in order to capitalize on this understanding, we really need to consider a new paradigm. You know, we're no longer this athlete events, you know, sponsored event company where we capture all of this high-end athletic footage. If we're going to really recognize what drives our customers to want to use our camera, there's a lot more users than there are athletes. And we have to think about what it's going to really take to embrace what the possibilities are. So we've just really started. Last year in 2013, I'm happy to say that I was the catalyst for creating an organization within IT called Digital Asset Management. We would refer to it as DAMS, or DAM IT. And it's an internal joke, and it's a young company, so they like it. So anyway, so we've selected one key partner. It's interesting because when we started the selection process, I, who am relatively close to the leading edge technology based on some of the companies I work for and some of the challenges that they've had, did not believe that this was going to be provided by a single solution provider. And as a result, we went through an RFP process and an RFQ process, not with the end technology partner, but with a systems integrator. So we did our RFP with system integrators. And by doing so, we had multiple companies come in. I know that IO Integration is here. They were our selected partner. And I was pleasantly surprised, and originally in a little bit of disbelief, that there was one partner out there, and that partner, as you probably know, is Censhare. So we were aligned From the get-go, we have continued to be aligned as we continue to explore our vision, our ideas, where we think technology is going, where we think the opportunities are. I have to say that Censhare has just been a remarkably aligned partner. Woo! Go, Dieter! Yeah, I know Amazon is here today, so just thought I'd give a shout out. We do use Amazon services very much for a lot of our business analytics that we are developing around Censhare and some of our other traditional IT systems. We also use Hadoop, which is part of our business analytics layer, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Oh, another video. User-generated content, not an athlete. So just an example of what we're seeing in terms of people are starting to really get creative in terms of how they use the camera, and what we're seeing is an explosion of ideas represented in footage that's created by a person who was not a pro before they got a GoPro and can be a pro. So when we embrace this user-generated content compared to athlete-oriented content this big, user-generated content, we really can't measure yet. But we have enough information to realize that based on current demands, that we will be growing the number of production minutes of usable footage, meaning that gets published to Discovery Channel. Virgin Airlines has a GoPro channel. There are lots of publishers, and we're actually having to select. There's more demand than we can satisfy. But the current growth that we are planning for this year is an 80x increase from last year. That said, we can only grow the media teams so quickly. It's a key area of expertise. There is certainly a high cost in hiring. Staffing tends to be one of the highest costs in most companies, and so we need to be respectful of the fact that we are going public, and we need to maintain and manage our operating expenses. So the only real way to make this happen is through technology. And technology that we've selected, Censhare, is our primary springboard to actually deliver on this internal objective. So interestingly, if we're going after user-generated content, I sometimes think of an example, which is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, does anybody here have a LinkedIn account? So not everyone, not yet, right? But what LinkedIn does is every person that has a LinkedIn account is like an object in their network. And they're connected by all these other attributes. Anybody ever been endorsed or endorse anybody else? So those endorsements, those are attributes to you as a human object, professional object, within their database. So what LinkedIn really does is they create an environment where 250 million people who they don't pay update their own information, endorse people, all of this big network, which is a Hadoop environment, it's a very big data environment, is mined like gold, and LinkedIn creates these services for advertising. If you want to know, if you want to do advertising only for CEOs in the greater New York area that work in pharmaceuticals and have used Oracle. You can do that, right? And save yourself time, money, and you'll have the accuracy. You won't be guessing. So advertising, recruiting, sales, what LinkedIn really does is they create an environment where people they don't pay can actually put gold data in their database and they can sell it. So the reason this is a good example is because it equates to user-generated content. So who pays people to go out and generate user-generated content? Not the company that is hoping to be able to mine that information and actually turn it into a monetized event, right? So some of the more compelling business models out there today are how can we create environments where people that will enjoy populating what will become data that we can mine. The challenge is there's a lot of data out there, and it's in different forms, right? So we might be getting some data from Twitter, some data from Salesforce. We are starting to collect, so GoPro is starting to collect camera usage logs. Not structured data, no relational database, logs. It's basically a text file. And we parse that, and then we take data out, and we create aggregated information, and then we relate it to other information. But it's challenging. We have a variety of systems out there, both our own internal systems as well as systems that we have access to, information sources that we have access to but are not ours, right? So the traditional information management, information hierarchy was very, and still is, very silo-based. And so business intelligence likewise tends to be very silo-based as well. Certainly there are companies that are aggregating data and putting it into a different store. The problem is that when any one of these systems changes, the business logic that is necessary to transform that data to get it down into that layer is a lot of work and tends to be slow and inaccurate because the timing is slow. You never know if you're comparing the right information. There's fat finger events, etc. So the challenge here and the opportunity is to look at it a different way. When we first engaged with Censhare for digital asset management, we recognize that this is not a traditional data type of an event. That said, we need to be able to monetize what we're collecting in the way of user-generated content, right? So lots of user-generated content. We need to ingest it. We need tags or metadata associated with it to come down into a database. And we need to also, because some of our users may have revenue sharing opportunities, especially if we have a campaign. I'm going to actually go back up again. So if there's if we have a particular publishing requirement, like a Discovery Channel, they want to do something on snowboarding or Sochi, we can actually look at and search what we have already using Censhare, and then that which we don't have, we can actually create a campaign that we publish, and users, we have email campaigns, we have lots of different ways of contacting our user and customer base, but those campaigns can and will create content to satisfy a business monetized publishing requirement, right? So we ingest that, we need to tag it accordingly so we know what we're ingesting it for, and then we need to be able to connect the dots across the other systems so that if we're doing monetization, there may be contracts. Well, there will be contracts. People who provide us content, we need to have their legal permission either to use it ourselves and put it on our own website or for reuse rights so that we can sell it. Usually, if we sell it, there may be an opportunity for a revenue share. So this is part of a future business model. It's not something we're doing today, but it is part of the paradigm that we believe is our future. So if we bring in user-generated content and we're going to pay someone, that means they have to be a vendor in the ERP system. And there needs to be a contract that says what our rights and restrictions are. What are the effectivity associated with that agreement? So all of a sudden, when we look at this new paradigm from a business standpoint, we recognize that we need to better connect the dots. We can no longer actually function, if we really are to capitalize on this opportunity, we can no longer function in the historical silos. So what we're doing is creating a normalized, data architected analytics environment where the objects, if you look up where it says key data objects, there are certain systems that these objects are the system of record for. When we bring these key objects down as the center or nucleus of these stars, those objects then we connect to other objects as well as to other attributes in ways that are modeled. Once you model data from these different source systems, then there's a natural waterfall effect that will just happen. So this data analytics environment allows us to basically traverse across the entire company and look for questions that we have that we don't have the answers to. And without the ability to look across the entire company and know which assets can be that have snow, that came from Sochi, that have an aerial shot of Shaun White, and that there's a contract that's current, that we have reuse, meaning relicensing rights, and the customer is set up, excuse me, the vendor is set up, then there's going to be a lot of manual work to do. So this is, in essence, a swim lane for insights, for analytics, and also for monetization. And we use Censhare to manage the entire life cycle of the asset. So from search, so we find some stuff, but we still need other stuff, to ingestion, where we tag, provide the metadata. We don't actually do the editing within Censhare, but I understand that there will be some integration with Adobe products coming up here shortly. We also use Censhare to review. When there's a review process, that tends to go to people who may be part of the approvers of that asset. So they review and they vote, provide comments, and then approve, and then publish. And we publish straight out of Censhare into different locations depending on the partner as well as the type of publisher. So what does the future hold? Based on what we're seeing, the future is really only limited by our, and really your, imagination. This, by the way, was done in San Mateo, and these guys landed at the GoPro campus. And that's Nick Woodman. One of the original founders. So if you want to see what the headquarters looks like, that's it. GoPro. Thank you.